Thank you, Mr. Superintendent. Mark Hovatter, Chief Facility Executive, Los Angeles Unified School District. And thank you, board members, for the opportunity to do one of the things I like to do most, and that's talk about the facilities program at Los Angeles Unified School District.
If you can advance with the right arrow, we'll see if we're, okay. Hold, just, it'll,
There,
yeah, there
we
you
go. I understand that you're considering a project labor agreement, and I will not presume that I know enough about your program to make a recommendation as to how you move one way or the other. But what I would like to do is to talk a little bit about our program and to talk about the project labor agreement we have and the reasons why we have continued with that. And in fact, I just signed a 10-year extension to our current agreement for the next $8 billion of our program. To put our program in perspective, we've been very fortunate. We went through a period in Los Angeles from 1980 to 2000 where our population increased by over 200,000 students, but we didn't build a single new school. And we handled that by doubling people up, making people go year-round, putting modulars down on playgrounds and parking lots. We faced an extreme overcrowding. So we went through about a 30-year period without building any schools at all. But then we were very fortunate that our taxpayers supported us and passed a whole series of bonds. Altogether, we call it our $28 billion program. We're approximately $20 billion of the way through our $28 billion program. In that time, we've built 130 brand new campuses. As we were building these campuses, we didn't build replacement campuses. They were just campuses to relieve overcrowding. So as we moved students out of the old schools and into the new campuses, we didn't get to tear down the old schools. And in fact, we did over 26,000 modernization projects. All of those projects were done under a project labor agreement that we had. My wife gives me a hard time when I go out and give presentations and says, you're not going to just get up there and brag about all the great things you did and awards you've won. So I usually try to summarize by saying we won a lot of awards and presentations, but just for your perspective, we're very proud of our program. We've gotten awards in just about every aspect. We've gotten national awards. We've gotten partnerships awards. Fannie Mae gave us most successful public-private partner, conservation awards, excellent awards in management, Black Business Associations, Partner of the Year from the Minority Contractors, and I do this just for effect more than anything, but we have a lot of awards from our program, and we're very proud, and we've been very successful. And it's taken a lot of work, and there's been a lot of trust from the public, and it's been very incumbent on us to do the things that are the smartest for our construction program. And we have a very robust bond oversight committee that watches us. We have a lot of public interest groups that pay a lot of attention to us and try to make sure that we're doing what's best for our public, for our kids, and for the taxpayers that we deal with. But I get to speak to a lot of people about project labor agreements, and they ask us, why would you do a project labor agreement? And some people want to debate what the project labor agreements are. And I've got to be truthful, I inherited project labor agreements when I came to the district 12 years ago. Actually, I'm retired Navy and spent about 6 years here in this area. And a lot of other people that went to that program were people that came through Port Hueneme and sent their schools through the Oxnard School District or Camarillo or Port Hueneme. And in the military, we just didn't deal with unions. We were federal property. We got to make up our own rules, and we did things, and it was a new thing for us, and I inherited it. And I thought, well, hopefully we'll have a successful program in spite of the fact that, we got to, cater to all these unions that we had. But I've been working with them for 12 years, and I've come to take a different perspective of how we do that. And I've heard a lot of reasons why we shouldn't have a project labor agreement. And I want to talk to, in particular, 4 of them that I call the myths. Myth number 1 is it limits competition. People say, you have a project labor agreement, that's terrible, it limits competition, you can only have union contractors when you work on your projects. That's just not the case. We count contractors not by one-time contractors, because anyone can come in and fail and leave, but we count our contractors by repeat people. We've done a whole lot of projects, over 24,000 modernization, 130 new schools. So we want people to come in and do not just one project, but multiple projects. But of those contractors that do more than one project with us, 1/3 of them are non-union contractors. And they do very well, and they do repeat business with us. So you absolutely do not have to be a union contractor to work into our program. And then I hear people talk about a small business program and how it conflicts with the project labor agreement. You can't possibly have small businesses because project labor agreements are so unfriendly to the small businesses. The fact is, I thumbed through those awards very fast, but you'll see 5 or 6, including some national awards, for our small business program. Our board had established a goal of having a 25% small business participation rate. We currently have a 42% small business participation rate. And we believe it's one of the strongest in the country, and we do a lot of things that help support that. And our small business program thrives in our construction program, which is under a project labor agreement. In fact, there's some aspects of a project labor agreement that are very small business friendly. If you're a small business and you want to try to emerge, you have to be careful about what you bid because, be careful what you ask for. You might win both bids if you bid 2 bids. With a project labor agreement, you have access to the workforce that the union contractors have, but you don't have to be a union contractor. So if you bid both jobs and you have to win both of them, you don't have to worry about where you're going to get that staff there because you can go to one of our union halls and you can ask for workers to be assigned to your projects that day. So a lot of our small businesses have grown up to be large businesses through our program, through the assets that they had available to them through our project labor agreement. One of my favorites, you got to pay those dang union wages if you have a project labor agreement. I'm not sure what the language is in any labor agreement that you might be looking at, but our labor agreement does not say a word about paying union wages. What our state law does say is that you have to pay state prevailing wage. And I will concede that there will be contractors that will bid a contract higher because there's a project labor agreement than they will for one that doesn't. But it's not because a project labor agreement requires them to pay higher wages. They're required to pay prevailing wage by state law. When you have a project labor agreement, there tend to be more eyes that are paying attention to whether the state law is being complied with, and contractors who are hopeful of being able to get away with not paying the state law required for prevailing wage might bid a little bit lower in hopes that they can get away with it. They don't get away with our program. We've got a very robust labor compliance program, and we don't enforce any labor rates they have, any union rates they have. In fact, if a union were to go out tonight and vote to suddenly have a higher union scale rate, our contractors are protected from having to follow that because our agreement says that contractors shall only be required to pay, at a minimum, the state prevailing wage. So if they decided to give everyone a $2 a raise, they could not enforce that on our contractors because they're only required by our agreement. And if there were such a case where that came up, then we've got provisions within our labor agreement that allows us to deal with that and make sure that the rules of our agreement are enforced. Drives up construction costs. So not just labor costs, but drives up construction. And it's interesting, a few years ago, there was a group that does not like project labor agreements, and they found a university and got them to write a paper that, a study that talked about how much more project labor agreements cost. And they had some facts in there, and LAUSD was a subject of that, which was kind of ironic because no one ever talked to me when they wrote that report. But they looked at a small rural school district in California, and they looked at their construction costs, and they said they don't have a project labor agreement, but Los Angeles does have one, and look how much more it costs to build at the Los Angeles Unified. Any of you that might be familiar with the Los Angeles area at all know that you don't build anything without tearing something down. We touch 32 municipalities, not just Los Angeles, but a lot of the smaller cities, and the cities would prefer that we not take the most developable land because that they would like to encourage some sort of industry that comes in and increases their tax base. They try to steer us towards the most undevelopable land. We build on the side of cliffs. We take something that used to be a toxic dump and spend a lot of money cleaning it up. We built a softball field that has a 65-foot concrete retaining wall that's basically built on the side of the cliff. It cost us more to build that softball field than it cost to build Dodger Stadium when the Dodgers came to Los Angeles. So there are a lot of things that drive up our cost, but it's not the project labor agreement. It's because of other factors that are unique to Los Angeles. We can't park cars without building underground parking spaces in most of our areas. So almost all of our schools will be multi-story, not flat. We'll have a 3-story school, a 4-story school, and lots of elevators that you have to do. We have to do underground parking and those sort of things. So those are the things that do drive up our construction. And I will certainly admit that it costs a lot to build in Los Angeles, but it has absolutely nothing to do with the project labor agreement. In fact, I believe that there's some conditions of the project labor agreement that actually help us control some of the costs that we have. Positive attributes of the project labor agreement, we're very committed to local workforce. We have a 52% local workforce under our program. So 52% of all the workers are coming from within our zip code, the people that send their kids to our schools, the people that vote for our next bonds as they come up. So we're very proud of that, and that certainly couldn't have been possible without our project labor agreement and the process we have through there. We have contractors that have access to a skilled workforce. I mentioned before, small businesses can bid more than one project, knowing that if they get more than one project and they don't have enough people, they're able to draw from the labor unions, a workshop, and get the skilled workforce that comes out. The people that come out of the labor unions have all been through certain apprenticeship training, and we know that there's a certain skill level they have, and it's something that we expect for quality on our projects. Joint labor management, apprenticeship programs. When we recognize even our own in-house workforce, we send through because of our agreements, we're able to send our own in-house workforce through apprenticeship programs and bring them on and get the benefit of that training for our in-house forces. Safe job sites and OSIP. OSIP is an owner-controlled insurance program. Because of the volume of our construction, we created a program that delivers insurance for workers' comp and for general liability for contractors. If they were to go out and contractors buy that on their own, included in their bids, the price would be much higher to us than if we buy a group insurance and take advantage of our economy of scale. Not only do we save a lot of money, and we probably save 40 to 50% on workers' comp costs by going through there, but our program is what we call loss sensitive, which means we pay a rate, and it was a 7-year contract. We paid the first 5 years at a rate based on the national anticipated average of workday injuries, and we paid that rate. And then it was loss sensitive, and if we had workers that got injured more than what the national average was, we would have to square up at 5 years and pay some more money. And if we had something that was less, then they would actually give us back money. Our insurance rate was about $10 million a year that we were paying for that. We had so few injuries on our projects that we got our last 2 years of insurance for free, and it saved us $20 million just on insurance rates because we had so few injuries. We averaged less than 1/3 of what the national expected average is for injuries. And one of the reasons we have that is because I credit the intense eyes that we have on projects with our project labor agreement. We enter a partnership where we basically deputize members from the union to help us do wage surveys to make sure people are paying the right wages. And while they're on the site, if they happen to see an unsafe condition, then they bring it to our attention and we go out and we deal with it. And we reward contractors for performing very safe, and we don't let people work with us who don't perform safely. And it's a business decision for us, and we're able to get a much better price for our insurance, and it directly saves money. Work stabilization, or work stability. I keep saying project labor agreement because that's what most people are familiar with, but in Los Angeles, everyone knows it as a project stabilization agreement. In part because labor just has a lot of negative connotations to some people. They drum it up and they hear the things like it costs you more money and you can only deal with union contractors and so on. The selling point for us, and the thing that makes me a convert and someone that really believes in this, is we have never had a single work stoppage day. We have never had a day of work stoppage on all the 25,000 plus projects that we had because of a labor dispute. That's unheard of in the construction industry. You have labor disputes, it stops projects, and everyone's waiting, and either formal or informal, or sick outs or things like that. But we certainly have had our share of disagreements. We're in the construction business. People disagree. We have disagreements between contractors and unions, and probably lately, as much as anything, we've had disagreements between one union and another over whose jurisdiction the work is. But we've had several people think this was business as usual and they could, order their people off the site or have everyone call in that sick day. All it takes is one phone call from me or someone on my staff saying, you are violating our agreement. I expect those workers to be out there immediately, and within an hour, we'll be full-blown, full-force working and going through there. And we haven't even had anyone that's even tried that in 5 or 6 years because they know our position on it and they know how critically important that is to us, that we can say that we've never had a work stoppage for that. And I don't know that you can put an exact price tag on it, but what's the cost of a delay of construction, for a week while you're trying to revolve a labor issue. I just add one thing, and I try not to talk about politics a lot, and a lot of people accuse me of, being a politician or holding one particular party affiliation, and I'm carrying the torch for the unions and so on. I can tell you, I certainly don't do that. I voted for our current president because I thought it was a good person at the time for that. But the truth is, the last Democrat I voted for was Jimmy Carter. I am not a hardcore Democrat that votes for a party just because I'm in line with that. I am a hardcore business person, and I believe it's my duty to make the absolute best business decision we can possibly make for the Los Angeles Unified School District. And I believe so strongly in the project labor agreement that we have that last year I signed a 10-year extension of ours. And our agreement covers all projects that are performed under our work. So we're going to do the next $8 billion under a project agreement. I'm hopeful that we're able to get another bond passed in a few years, and maybe we get another $4 or $5 billion out of that. That will also be done under a project labor agreement. I believe we will continue to get awards for our program. We'll continue to serve our community and our students well, and I believe that has a great part to do with the fact that we've got such a good partnership with our labor, and that we're able to work together to accomplish what we have. And I'll make myself available to answer questions to you today or at any time in the future, and I'll also make my staff available to you under labor agreements, or anything that you do that's good for construction is good for us construction too, and I would make my whole construction force available to you if you wanted to work with us in any manner. Thank you, sir.
Trustee O'Leary?
Yes, Mr. Hovatter, thank you for coming to Oxnard to talk about this. Two questions or two categories. We'll see how the questions go. Within the project labor agreements that LA Unified School District has, how much overturn do you see that money, that investment of local jobs, do you see it actually going to the local community? Is there proof that the money stays local?
There is, and we did a study recently, and I was invited to go up to a state Senate subcommittee as they're considering another state bond to present that, and we hired a firm to go out and measure the impact. And I have to apologize, it was a couple years ago, I don't remember the exact numbers, but it was fivefold the number of jobs that were created. For the amount of money that we invested in our program, the number of jobs through the ripple effect. Right. You had to have suppliers, you had to have people that do uniforms and lunch trucks and all of those things. And it was Rand McNally who had done that independent report for us that had found that economic input that we had for our construction. And as I mentioned, we've got a 52% local hire, which means the wages that are being paid out to the individuals, 52% of them live in our zip code. So all of those jobs created, we believe at least 52% of them were in our area. So
the money at least stays at least one cycle within the local area?
We certainly believe it does.
And would you say that the money, there would be more money, or there would be more opportunity for that money to stay in the local area with some sort of a project labor agreement than without?
The main advantage of a project labor agreement is without a project labor agreement, we would have no provision to help us require a contractor to hire local people.
Right.
But because we can, through our labor agreement, we can require our contractors to have workers assigned through the union hall.
Right.
The union hall has an agreement with us that if the next person in line doesn't live in our zip code, he steps aside and lets the guy 3 people back come up in front of them, and they get assigned to our job.
Right.
So
and they're qualified as well.
They are. They have to have the same qualifications. And if the union halls are depleted, and we actually had a period in 2006, 2007 when there's so much construction, the union halls were depleted, they didn't have people, then the contractor has a right to go out and get their own people from wherever they are. But they'll first have to go through the halls to get them filled.
Now, this is our second meeting on the subject, and we've invited people who vehemently opposed this and used the word union as if it was some kind of a negative word that we should understand the key, the significance of or what. But we haven't written one word yet of a proposal. And I'm going to be calling that we do actually write something so we can actually maybe possibly debate an actual proposal. That said, would it be possible for our district, our superintendent, and whoever he assigns to contact you to possibly get a copy or documents from your proposal? Not necessarily, it might not fit for Oxnard, but instead of reinventing a wheel, would we be able to glean from you information and your proposal that we might be able to use part or all of it?
Absolutely, we can certainly make that available to you, and I would even go a step further. We compiled a list of things that we thought, we maybe went too far when we signed the agreement and negotiation points we had.
I appreciate that.
And we'll tell you the things that we really like and we won't. I didn't spend a lot of time saying bad things about the project labor agreement, but obviously it's an effort.
Right.
And it's a staff administration, and there are issues with trust funds and stop notices and things that you have, but again, when you weigh the benefits from it, from the level of effort that we have to go through, we think
And that's
the
why we
benefits far outweigh
continue
it.
to revise and oversee any agreements that we have. So,
Sure.
Thank you.
Trustee Del Rio Barber?
Thank you, and thank you very much for coming tonight. I have a couple of questions. You gave us a number of 52% being from the local workforce. Was that a negotiated number, or is that what you were able to bring in at the time for whatever project?
In our project labor agreement, it's a requirement that the union halls have a goal of 50%. It took us a while to get to that point, but I think we crossed over the 50 mark about 8 months ago, and we've been above that since then. If we were to enter into a new agreement now, I think that it's hard for the unions to comply with that. It's hard to tell the guy that's in line next to get a job that you got to step aside because you live on the wrong street, and this guy gets to bump you out. In fact, when we came up for renegotiations, one of the things that they relayed to me was that they would like to cut that down to 40%. But they had their list of things they wanted to change. We had our list of things that we wanted to change, and we agreed to go ahead and leave it the way it was as we move forward. So we still hold that position, and our unions are very diligent about making sure that they get the local people into our workforce. But the mechanism of doing that is, when they're getting assigned out of the hall, they look at their zip code. They see if they're in a zip code that constitutes our school district. And if they are, then they're considered local, and then they can be assigned to work on our projects.
And you mentioned that you just entered into another agreement, so this number, did it change then?
The 50% remained the same. They had originally proposed that they would like to take it down to 40% because it's difficult, as I mentioned, for the unions to maintain that higher level, but they believed that we had a very good agreement and a successful partnership, and we were more comfortable leaving the 50 in than letting it drop.
Okay, so if I could ask, what the difference of that percentage then, where did that come from?
Between the 50 and the 40?
No, between the 100% and 52%? What was
Oh.
the balance, what is it?
You mean where did the 48% people come?
48%, yes.
Most of them come from the Los Angeles County. If you ever looked at a map of the LA Unified, it's not some big square, it's
Cities.
big, and then it goes skinny, and then it
Yeah.
goes out. So a lot of times it's the guy that's literally on the other side of the street.
Okay.
But they have to have an address that their checks are mailed to that is within the zip code that constitutes our area.
Okay.
Sometimes someone will bring in a bunch of people from Texas or Utah or something, but most of them are the Los Angeles County area. At one point, we'd even thought about changing our definition of local to the Los Angeles counties, but we want people that send their kids to our schools and vote on our tax bonds, so we kept it very restrictive.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Mr. Hovatter.